Knights, behold me, Grandpa Rick. You see, you young whippersnappers, you've got such an easy life here in 100 Cap. Back in my day, we didn't have time to complain about mythic drop rates. And you want to know why? It's because we were too busy not getting any epics at all.
Alright, well, we'll leave Grandpa Rip to his rants, but suffice to say, this whole video is going to be a back in my day reference. Because truth be told, there's a lot of stuff that, while it may be old content, it's still wildly useful even in 100 Cap to at least know about. Trust me, I'm sure to even teach some of you veterans a thing or two. Now I'll be going in chronological order from oldest to newest, starting all the way back at level 50. But first, let me talk about which characters you should bring and some farming equipment that you should have. First things first, most all of this content is extremely easy due to the fact that level 100 Cap has inflated the damage to insane levels. If you have at least a level 100 get unique set, you're probably going to be so strong that you can basic attack everything to death. For that reason, and the fact that these dungeons generally burn through FP, I recommend farming this older content with an alternate character design for it. Preferably someone who can clear content very easily and quickly just by sheer virtue of how good their kit is in general PvE. Characters like Vagabond, Ghostblade, Lightbringer, Nedmaster, and Swiftmaster come to mind, but literally anyone will work. That way you can save FP for real endgame content on your mains. Another thing that I suggest for these so-called farming alts is to go into your Explorer Club shop and purchase this level 85 epic equipment selection box every month. There are some very useful epic gears that you can pick up that greatly increase your move speed. I like the full plate shoes since it has better acceleration, but you can also get the football shoes which has a higher top speed. Also, if you happen to be farming level 100 epics on this farming character and are lucky enough to get the mage shoulders, put it on. For low level content, it creates an aura around you that literally one-shots anything that you walk next to. Combine it with those football shoes I talked about and it's almost comically efficient at farming. And with that out of the way, let's make our way to Elvengard to talk about our first area that you should visit daily. The first place that we're going to is the guild hideout. We've had this as a feature since the beginning of time and it bears mentioning. You need to be in a guild to access this area, and so if you're not in one, either join one, or if you don't want to deal with other people, screw it. It's easy enough to make one yourself. Being in a guild also gives you permanent raw stats as a passive buff and even access to infinite teleportation potions to go anywhere on the map at the click of a button. Once inside, walk up through the door and make certain that you use your guild tokens to get yourself a legendary insignia from Regan here. It gives you raw stats on your insignia screen, and it can even be reinforced at Ande here to be made stronger. Make sure that you also get yourself some gemstones to put into your insignia. The NPC sells rare, but there is one tier higher of unique. You need to use Ande here to combine like gens to try and make a higher grade version. There's a dungeon over here on the right, which you can enter 3 times a day, 6 times a week, that gives you insignias, gemstones, and guild contributions to use at these various systems. This is basically one of those things that is not optional. You'll have to do it at some point. The last 2 items worth mentioning can be purchased at Ande. Daily, you can use some contribution points to purchase both of these boxes that give powerful energies and demon invitations respectively. Both of these items are still wildly useful in 100 Cap, and this just so happens to be one of the most efficient ways to get them since you can redeem each box on a per character basis. Daily. It's really good. I'm surprised to find out how many people are not aware about Joah Ferrerro's weekly dungeons. As you can see, there are 3 dungeons here that you can enter a few times a week as determined by your Explorer Club level. I, for instance, can enter each of these 3 times each for my entire account, and they drop really useful stuff such as powerful energies, demon invitations, and equipment souls. Of particular note, however, is this dungeon here, the Forgotten Lands, which is truly forgotten content, but does still have its uses. I've got a guide video on how to do a full run of this dungeon, but I'll just summarize it here. First of all, it's a dungeon that can be entered once a day per character, and it's basically a huge map that you can farm for 30 minutes. There are a lot of useless items that you can get while you're in here, but of very particular use is this repair coupon. It can only work in the Forgotten Lands, but it instantly repairs the durability of 1 slot of gear at absolutely no cost. Essentially what that means is that if you farm a bunch of these tickets, you can get 1 free repair a day on any and all of your broken gear just by stepping into here. The other useful item is actually these crystals of differing colors. If you get a stockpile of them, you can redeem them at this box next to Joah Ferrerro to get yourself a very unique EXP potion. They work for 5 dungeons and do indeed stack with the EXP potion that is in the mileage shop, making them hands down the most efficient way to farm that content. Now, it's not all that useful anymore considering most of the EXP that you get comes from quests themselves. No biggie, that just means you also stack this improved growth potion from the Explorer Club shop on top of it. And now you've got the holy trifecta of EXP modifiers. Now why am I mentioning all these leveling strats? Well, the new Spectre class is coming here in about a week, and I'm just giving you guys some ideas that you can farm for and prepare for before she comes out. Speaking about Spectre, she is going to be a physical fixed damage character, so it is worth talking about how to farm powerful energies. In order to make a fixed damage character stronger, you'll need to refine your weapon either in the guild hideout or from June the Blacksmith here in Shonen. You'll notice that unlike reinforcement at Kiri, June isn't asking for any gold or anything. All he needs are powerful energies. It's crazy how much disregard Neopal has with farming powerful energies, since there really hasn't been much change in the farming location since level 70 cap. First, as I mentioned earlier, there is a box with 50 in the guild hall that you can redeem daily. I also mentioned about the weekly Joah Ferrerro dungeon where you can get a sizable amount per run. But if you want to use your FP to farm powerful energies, then both dungeons are here in Shonen. If you loop around here with an entry that you can buy at June, you can enter the Gold Dragon tournament. Personally, I'm not a big fan of it since it seems so slow, but you can easily AFK farm this dungeon. Now there is an alternative reason to farm this dungeon though. There are 2 daily quests that can be completed by doing it, and they both give purple Magatamas. You can trade in 30 purple Magatamas at Wu for a tradable title bead, of which has 3 elemental damage on it. This is the best in slot title bead in specific situations where the title itself does not have a bead associated with it. For instance, on the Heroes of Ethos title that we had a while back. To get back on track, my personal favorite dungeon to farm powerful energies is actually here to the west of Shonen in an area called Kalundal. It's a series of 3 dungeons, but the only useful one is this one, the Twin Golem Portrayals, boasting one of the fastest clear times in the game, and it drops powerful energies from the boss. I just like it because it only takes a few seconds to farm and you can burn your FP as fast as you want to. And of course, if you don't want to farm anything, then you can get pouches of powerful energies in the mileage shop as well, making that the most efficient way to get them if you're desperate. To end my powerful energy discussion, I've got a pro tip for you. Did you know that while powerful energies are untradeable, you can indeed transcend a refined weapon to another character on your account? In that way, you can farm and refine a level 100 unique katana to +8 and simply transcend it to your Spectre once she comes out. Sure, there's probably going to be an event giving you a decent weapon, but this is a great way to get a refined 8 right off the bat. Just a really big note though, this strategy does not work for reinforcing a weapon, as the transcendent system wipes any weapon reinforcement that the weapon has. Now while we no longer have Anton Raid, the spirit of it lives on in Anton Dailies instead. You can enter this dungeon by traveling to the Noble Sky area. To enter this dungeon, you'll need some Magtonium, which go for super cheap in the auction hall. The item that you're looking for here is primarily the Antonium and Condensed Antonium, and you can get some every dungeon and a large amount of it for clearing all 5. Heading over to Tammy here, you want to trade in all of your Condensed Antonium for these Antonium pots, and then use that Antonium to purchase either of these 5% critical beads. Lo and behold, these 5% beads are still, to this day, the best in slot crit beads for the belt and shoes slot. Sure, not every class needs this much crit, but it's the best option if you do. Even if you don't need them, they still sell super well because of it, and you can run this dungeon 1 time a day, 2 times a week per character. Alright, remember those Demon Invitation box that I spoke about picking up at the guild hall, as well as the ones that we pick up from the Joah Ferrerro weekly? Well, after several weeks of redeeming them, you're going to end up with a stockpile of Demon Invitations, and I recommend using them in the Temporal Rift Hell modes. These are essentially small dungeons that have a final boss and can be completed in less than 30 seconds. The reason this is important is because you can use this dungeon not only for farming epic souls, but also for farming a lot of equipment that you can use to disassemble for cubes or sell for money. The reason that this occurs is that the boss itself has a chance of dropping up to 2 items, and if you have Neo Premium Plus, you get yet another 2 items for clearing the dungeon. I have yet to find another dungeon with this level of efficiency at doing this at this speed. Sure, it could be argued that things like Stormy Route and 100 cap might give you more gold that you can then turn around and use to buy cubes, but again, this is a strategy that's designed for alts. Epic Souls are far more useful a resource since it can be farmed on one character and used by another character on your account, unlike things like Time Guide Stones, which come untradeable. This video isn't really telling you everything that you should do, it's more giving you some ideas of things that you can. Variety is the spice of life after all. All the rest of my tips come from level 95 cap, and you'll notice that a lot of it is still relevant in 100 cap. Since it's not as old, I won't spend as much time explaining each dungeon, but instead I'll let you explore them yourself. The most important thing that I cannot stress enough that comes from 95 cap is this dungeon region over to the western side of Harlem. This dungeon is called the Operation Hope, and you can enter into here 3 times a week. This is an absolute pivotal dungeon for all but buffer characters in DFO because it gives you your swap set. And if you don't know what a swap set is, then this is not optional. You must watch my guide video on the subject where I go over this dungeon as well. Check it out in the description to learn more. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the Assault Mode dungeon takes a cake as DFO's most efficient method to farming legendary souls. Of course, if you were really desperate for legendary souls, then you'd do this dungeon as well as the level 100 caps 5+5 dungeons. Now, Assault Mode is accessed by going here in Harlem and clicking this button. You'll need some Seed of Birth, but those go for pretty cheap. It's a series of 4 dungeons, each with a dungeon clearance reward of Emblem of Heroes, and the final boss of the 4th dungeon has a chance of dropping a legendary outright. But even if you aren't lucky, you can guarantee yourself a legendary with those Emblem of Heroes that drop, allowing you to exchange a legendary for 400 of them. Now, you might be wondering what legendary souls are used for. Well, one is used anytime you need to retexturize a gear, and you'll also use a lot if you plan on crafting epics after getting enough shards in the epic dictionary. You'll soon see that it's far easier to get epic souls than it is to get legendary souls, so bringing a ton of alts through Assault Mode might not be a bad strat. Now, back in my day, I used to be known as the mayor of DC Town, because I would run this dungeon on nearly every single character on my account. This dungeon should be treated as 2 free hell modes per character per day, very similar to 2+2s and 1s in 100 cap. The difference with Dawn and Crevice, however, is that even when you don't get any epic drops, you are still partially working your way towards crafting an epic by use of the aberrant crystals, every 500 of which can be considered 1 epic soul after you purchase a recipe, and with one of the legendaries that you farm from the aforementioned Assault Mode, you can convert that legendary into an epic and then disassemble it for an epic soul. It's a little bit roundabout, but it definitely works, especially if you're bringing a lot of characters through it. Another, perhaps even more important reason to farm Dawn and Crevice is for the epic set drop itself. Sure, you can get an epic soul out of it, but sometimes, very rarely, that epic will drop cursed. And exclusive to level 95 gear, if it's cursed, that curse can be transferred to level 100 epic gear by use of the engravement system. For that reason, it's very beneficial on top of all of your 2+2s and 1s to also do DC, for that chance at a curse slot of gear to transfer over and make your main that much stronger. Although there are several dungeons that you can use to farm Terranium, Disaster Sector 3 is perhaps the best due to how quickly you can farm it. You can burn your entire FP bar, and it's all in one dungeon that only takes a few minutes to run. Far more efficient than, say, Luke or Prey Dailies or anything else really. Why do you need Terranium though? Well, I say it's strictly for one NPC, Jonathan, located here in Central Park. First is his shop, which I recommend to utilize daily. You can sell up to 80 of your Terranium a day for a nice chunk of daily gold. You can also create refined Terranium, and I recommend purchasing this Essence of the Rift pouch and both Vestige of Hope pouches again daily. These pouches are invaluable when dealing with the amplification system, or if you don't want them, you can sell them in the auction house for people who do. The other thing that you can use Terranium for is to reinforce a level 95 epic weapon or earring. By using this method and then transferring those reinforcements using the engravement system at Loton, you can essentially get yourself a +12 level 100 epic weapon or earring without ever using any gold whatsoever. That being said, depending on the market value of Aelite, gold can be used to make the reinforcement process far cheaper than using Kiri's reinforcement system the normal way. The reason for that is that you can transfer your Aelite into Terranium at a rate of 1:1 up to 3,000 times daily, again at the Jonathan NPC. In other words, Terranium and the Jonathan NPC is the way to go, both for amping and especially reinforcement. He's one of the most important NPCs in the entire game. You'll need level 95 epic gear to begin this route, however. You can craft yourself a level 95 epic earring by simply doing Donning Crevice in assault mode. For the level 95 epic weapon, the easiest way is to get a Sky's Legacy weapon from the Joshua NPC. He requires Sky Fragments, which you can farm 3 times a week in the Tabor's dungeon to his right, or you can also get account-bound Sky Fragments 3 times a day from the 1st and 2nd pit dungeons in the Valley of Fallen Souls. Looking in these separate channels, sure, Pandemonium War, everyone knows that we need to keep running because of the extra runes and the ability to upgrade your old talismans. But I also want to bring attention to this still useful area of the Pandemonium Meeting. By bringing 3 teams of 2 characters, you can run this dungeon to get some still relevant beads, as well as EXP pills that give you flat EXP. Again, yet another thing that you can abuse for your upcoming Spectre character. The last area and tip I'm going to leave you with here is in the Valley of Fallen Souls. This area has been here for a very long time, with new content added all the time. But the way I see it, only 3 dungeons are worth doing every single day for as many characters as it allows. First is the first pit here. I recommend bringing 3 characters through it and running at least the first 4 rooms before the mini boss. Each of these rooms mails you a bunch of white and blue gear that can be used to easily farm cubes daily. You can continue through the pit to get the aforementioned Sky Fragments if you need a level 95 epic weapon. For the Spirit Haven dungeon, just run normal or hard, whatever you can manage on 1 character. On top of getting cool cosmetic items that you can use on your characters or sell in the auction hall, you can disassemble anything that you don't want for their equivalent souls, being a decent way to get legendary and epic souls. And lastly, the Tower of Dazzlement is still probably the fastest way to craft yourself a stockpile of fodder cars that you can use as upgrade materials.
I can't get into raids because all the fucking elitists out there. Elitism. That's all
But
I hear
guys,
on
I'm
the
at my
goddamn
wit's
time.
end. I am positive that there is more content that I forgot to mention that you might recommend newbies to do. I please implore you to put them in the comments below, and I'll be hearting anything that I find useful. But this is all that I can think of for the time being. And with that being said, Knights, begone.